There's something different in the air around you lately. Nothing you can point to with precision, but it's there. A strange unease that won't let you settle into habitual patterns. Like someone moved the furniture of your life a few inches, and now everything seems slightly off. Most people expect change to show up with flashing lights and sirens blaring. They watch the door waiting for transformation to knock and introduce itself with papers in order. But real change doesn't work that way. It enters through the window you left cracked open, installs itself in the guest room, and lives there for weeks before you realize someone moved in. You've been catching yourself doing odd things recently, pausing mid-conversation because the words coming out of your mouth sound like someone else wrote them. Standing in rooms you've stood in 1,000 times feeling like a stranger in your own house. Scrolling through your phone contacts and wondering when all these people became acquaintances instead of friends. Something's been rewiring itself inside you while you were busy living your regular life. Not the dramatic kind of rewiring where sparks fly and circuits blow. The quiet kind where connections that used to light up when triggered just don't fire anymore. Where pathways you traveled automatically now feel like walking through mud. You probably thought something was wrong with you at first. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe you're burnt out. Maybe you need a vacation or a new hobby, or to talk to someone professional about whatever this is. But it's none of those things. This is what evolution feels like from the inside when it's happening to you instead of to some distant ancestor you learned about in school. Your system is rejecting old programming like a body rejecting a transplant that seemed like a good match but turned out to be incompatible. Everything you built your identity around is being questioned by some part of you that didn't exist 6 months ago. Or maybe it always existed but was sleeping in the basement and finally woke up. The rules you've been following your whole life suddenly look arbitrary, like someone made them up on a Tuesday and everyone just agreed to pretend they mattered. The goals you were chasing feel like they belonged to a character you were playing in a show that got canceled. The relationships you maintain through routine and obligation are starting to feel like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small. This isn't rebellion. You're not going through some late-blooming phase of teenage angst. This is your internal compass recalibrating after years of being pointed toward magnetic north when your true north was always somewhere else entirely. The recalibration hurts because you've built an entire life based on the old coordinates. Your tolerance for nonsense has been dropping without you making any conscious decision to care less. People who used to take up hours of your mental space barely register now. Situations that would have sent you spiraling last year just make you tired this year. Drama that used to hook you slides right off like you're coated in something it can't stick to anymore. You're not becoming cold or detached. You're becoming discerning. There's a difference. Cold people shut down because they're afraid of feeling. Discerning people feel everything but choose consciously what deserves their energy. You're learning the difference between being open and being available to anything that wants to walk through the door. The strange part is how this shows up in your body before your mind catches up. Your chest tightens in meetings that look productive but feel pointless. Your shoulders relax around people you barely know but who somehow feel safe. Your stomach drops when you're about to say yes to something your mouth wants to agree to, but your gut knows you'll regret. This internal guidance system has been installing itself in the background while you were distracted by the foreground of your daily life. Now it's operational and broadcasting signals you can't ignore anymore. Even when you try to override it with logic or obligation or what you think you should do, the signal keeps coming through stronger. Your relationships are probably the clearest mirror of what's shifting. Not through big fights or dramatic endings, but through a slow erosion of resonance. Conversations that used to energize you now leave you feeling like you participated in something hollow. People you used to seek out for advice suddenly seem like they're speaking from a script you've outgrown. Friends you've known forever feel like they're standing on one side of a river while you're on the other, and the current between you keeps getting wider. If what I'm describing is landing somewhere in your chest, if you're recognizing yourself in these words, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. We're creating content for people in this exact transition who need to know they're not losing their minds but finding themselves. Your subscription helps us reach others navigating this same territory. Please take a moment and subscribe. Now let's talk about what's actually happening beneath the surface. This isn't anyone's fault. You didn't grow apart because someone failed or stopped trying. You grew in different directions because growth doesn't move in straight lines. Sometimes the people who made perfect sense for one chapter of your life make no sense in the next chapter. And trying to force them to fit creates friction that exhausts everyone involved. The loneliness that comes with this kind of transition is its own species of alone. You can be surrounded by people and still feel like you're speaking a language nobody else understands. You can be in long-term relationships and feel like a ghost haunting your own life. This loneliness isn't about lack of company. It's about lack of resonance, about being between frequencies with no clear station to tune into. But inside this loneliness lives something most people never access: room. Actual space to exist without constantly adjusting yourself to fit other people's expectations. Permission to be weird or quiet or intense, or whatever you actually are when you're not performing normalcy. Freedom to explore the parts of yourself that couldn't breathe when your identity was wrapped tight around pleasing others. You're discovering that huge portions of what you thought was your personality were just adaptation strategies. The cheerfulness that got you through difficult situations, the agreeableness that kept peace in your family, the confidence that covered up uncertainty, the independence that protected you from disappointment. All of it served a purpose. None of it was actually you. Peeling away these layers doesn't feel like liberation at first. It feels like losing pieces of yourself. Each adaptation that falls away leaves a space that nothing fills immediately. You stand there exposed and uncertain, wondering who you are without all the protective covering you've been wearing since childhood. This vulnerability is terrifying. It's also where real identity begins. The person emerging from underneath all that adaptation doesn't arrive fully formed with clear preferences and confident direction. They arrive more like a question than an answer, more like an experiment than a conclusion. They need space to figure out what they actually like, what actually matters, what actually feels true when nobody's watching and judging. Your daily life becomes a laboratory for testing what's authentic. You try speaking more honestly and notice how it lands in your body. You honor your actual energy instead of pushing through exhaustion and discover you accomplish more with less effort. You make choices based on internal knowing instead of external pressure and watch how reality responds differently. These experiments don't produce immediate results you can measure. You can't track this transformation with metrics or milestones. The real changes happen in invisible dimensions. How you breathe when you're alone. The quality of silence you can hold without needing to fill it. The kinds of thoughts that arise when you're not managing everyone else's comfort. This is why the shift feels so unexpected. You were scanning the horizon for big changes in circumstances or relationships or career. You were waiting for transformation to announce itself through events you could point to. But the real revolution was always going to be internal. A quiet rewiring of your entire operating system while your attention was elsewhere. That rewiring is almost complete now. The person you're becoming is ready to emerge. Not through force or effort or trying harder, through simple recognition of what's already different. The change isn't approaching. The change arrived months ago and has been settling in while you adjusted to its presence. Before we close, I want to ask something. If this message is reflecting something you've been feeling but couldn't name, if you're seeing yourself in these words, please subscribe. We're going deeper into navigating these transitions in upcoming content, and staying connected means you won't miss the next piece of this puzzle. Please take a moment and subscribe. So here you are. standing in the middle of a transformation you never scheduled. Not because you weren't paying attention, but because this kind of change moves like fog, reshaping everything while remaining formless itself. You've been feeling it for months. The restlessness that wouldn't quiet. Those moments of clarity that felt like remembering something crucial you'd forgotten. The way familiar things started feeling foreign, and the way you started feeling foreign to yourself. All of it was groundwork for this moment when you finally understand that change isn't something external that happens to you. It's something internal that happens through you. The person you were got you this far. They kept you safe, helped you survive, made compromises that seemed necessary at the time. But survival and thriving operate on different frequencies. You've been tuning into a new station without realizing what you were doing. Your life is about to change because you've already changed. The external world is just catching up to the internal revolution that's been quietly occurring. Trust what you've been sensing. Trust the process unfolding beneath your daily routines. Trust that not knowing who you're becoming is exactly where you need to be right now. The most extraordinary transformations always begin with the courage to release who you thought you had to be and embrace whoever you actually are underneath all the performance. Your life is about to change in ways you didn't expect, but the truth is it already has.